Next, a look back at Martin Luther King Jr.'s death and the week that transformed a nation.
My husband often told the children that if a man had nothing that was worth dying for, then he was not fit to live. He said also that it's not how long you live, but how well you live.
51 past the hour. That was Coretta Scott King speaking after the assassination of her husband, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And joining us now, author of Burial for a King, Rebecca Burns. Rebecca, thanks for being with us. We still have Pat Buchanan and the Reverend Al Sharpton in Washington, Senator Chuck Schumer at the table as well, along with Willie, Mike, and me. So, Rebecca, obviously the assassination happened long before the 24-hour news cycle and internet immediate reaction. But what were those first hours like? Because apparently news spread fast.
It spread really fast and really rapidly. It was probably at that point the fastest dissemination of any news item that occurred. And within minutes of news of the assassination, there was rioting starting in some places. People were getting together, kind of preparing for how are they going to respond. And then, of course, the police and the FBI, I mean, everyone's out en masse in Memphis trying to solve what had actually happened.
And amidst all the chaos in the coming days, the preparation for one of the most important funerals of our time.
Absolutely. So, I mean, what really drew me to this subject was looking at, when you read civil rights histories, they kind of go up to the assassination and then they don't continue. But what really happened during that time was really pivotal, getting ready to mourn Martin Luther King, what he meant, the symbol that he represented that had been taken from us, and then how do you honor that in the middle of a very chaotic and tumultuous time.
Reverend Sharpton, I want to go to you on this. April 4th, 1968, what do you remember about getting the news and then about the events that followed that night in cities across the country?
Well, you know, I was 13 years old when Dr. King was killed, but I had already joined the youth division of his organization in New York. And I remember very clearly, I was watching a TV show called Ironside with my mother in Brooklyn. And it came across the screen, Martin Luther King had been killed in Memphis. And I was shocked because even though I was just becoming a teenager, I had met him a couple of times. But my mother started crying hysterically, and like a member of our family had been killed. And I asked her why. I said, I know we in the organization, but why are you so uncontrollably losing it here? She said, you'd have had to be born in Alabama like me and sat on the back of the bus or denied a cup of coffee to understand what this means. And as the days went on, there was violence, there was riots. The thing I think that Ms. Burns contributes to this, and it goes back to Senator Schumer's point, is we must remember Dr. King was in Memphis because he'd gone there to support AFSCME, the union. There was a riot that young kids, a group called the Invaders, had started that actually had someone killed at his march. He went back to Memphis to prove he could have a nonviolent march. So even he was dealing with violence and gun violence when he was killed, which is what brought him back to Memphis supporting AFSCME. We're dealing with those issues 42 years later in a different time.
Hey, Senator Schumer, I'd like to ask you, and then Rebecca, the community that is America, our memory, our collective memory, our age of instant gratification with things moving so quickly. Well, how do you think Dr. King's memory and his actions resonate today with people?
I think, you know, in a fast-moving society, so many things are forgotten, but he is not. He's a transcendent figure. And the fact that we do have a holiday, I think, has been very, very important, because then even young kids learn about it in school and everything else. He's one of the few figures that lived, you know, a while ago and still has influence on us today, a positive influence.
Transcends. Rebecca.
Yep.
Absolutely. I think that is really important. Something that's really interesting to me, though, is to also go beyond the memory of peace and I Have a Dream, but also what he was crusading for at the time he was assassinated, which was the Poor People's Campaign and economic justice as well as civil rights justice. And it's great to kind of have this time to think about him and go back to what all he stood for, which is a very broad spectrum.
All right, Rebecca Burns, thank you. The book is Burial for a King. Senator Chuck Schumer and the Reverend Al Sharpton, thank you as well. Still ahead, David Eisenhower and Julie Nixon Eisenhower. Keep it right here on Morning Joe.